Welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast with Lorenz, where we explore the ketogenic lifestyle and how it can improve your physical and mental health. Each week, we bring you valuable insights and advice from experts to help you on your journey to a healthier lifestyle. This episode is brought to you by BasicKetogenicLifestyle.com, where Lorenz coaches individuals with depression to reverse their symptoms and achieve a healthier, happier life using an evidence-based approach. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive deep into the world of ketones and coffee. Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast today and never miss an episode.
Welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast, where we talk about creating a sustainable, healthy lifestyle through the ketogenic diet. I'm Lorenz, and I'm so grateful to have you join me on this journey. And every week, I bring in guests who have the knowledge and experience to help you on your own journey to a better health. I'm so excited for this. We have a very special guest on the podcast today. Dr. Kelli Ritter is a functional nutritional therapist and a quantum health coach who specializes in helping people find relief from digestive and gut issues, anxiety, depression, and sleep issues through education, consultation, and coaching. Originally trained in clinical mental health counseling, Dr. Kelli discovered her passion for holistic psychotherapy and has since earned several certifications in the health and wellness field. As the host of the Nourish Soul Podcast, Dr. Kelli explores all things nourishing to the body, mind, soul, and shares powerful tools for optimal health. I'm thrilled to have her here today to share her expertise with us. Dr. Kelli, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to talk with you.
I'm so excited to have you on here today. It's so great to have you because, you bring a unique blend of, training, education, and experience, to the table. Plus, with your background as a clinical mental health counselor, I believe you spent 9 years as an associate professor in as a qualitative researcher, and then transitioned into holistic psychotherapy, where your focus, using food as medicine, led to further training in this area. And then you went back to school, I believe, became a nutritional therapist and quantum health coach, which we'll try to get into later on the show. I understand that your journey into, nutrition and was inspired by some of your experiences, and it seems to have been driven you to, do your own research. And could you, briefly tell us, about your journey and how it has shaped your approach to therapy?
Sure. That was a great bio. I don't think anybody's ever gotten it that, on it. That is my background. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. For me, this, but in 2009, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And at the time I was, working in the field of clinical mental health. Not that I didn't like nutrition and think that was important, but that's really not where my focus was. And so I was really just trying to help him. And he actually ended up living almost 3 years with pancreatic cancer. And so I learned a lot about gut health and nutrition. And then it just started making sense to me that why weren't we teaching this in clinical mental health? The gut-brain axis, at least. But the neurotransmitters, I think what did it for me when I learned that the majority of our neurotransmitters are made in our gut, I was blown away by that. I don't understand why we're not teaching that. So, so I had a long, windy road to here, but it's been an interesting one for sure. But it was really a personal quest.
Yeah, no, it seems like it. And, when you talked about the passing of your father, and I believe that, that was it for you. The spark was lit for you. And there was, you have a show on YouTube and where you share information with others. I recommend this to anyone listening. Go check it out, the Nourish Soul. And then you have YouTube, Dr. Kelli Ritter. And I understand it because this is what I do. 3 years ago, I also, began interviewing regular people who had, achieved the same success like I did, where just a little backstory. I experienced a full-blown manic psychosis, and then 6 to 7 years ago, then it was followed by years of, just debilitating fear. And then everything changed for me when I discovered, nutrition, ketogenic diet. And so I began recording those experiences, those interviews, hoping sharing them with others. But initially my goal was to, just lose weight, but then, stumbled upon something more significant. You talked about, the gut health, that like without gut health, you don't have, mental health. Like, it's that relationship that I don't understand the relationship. And I hope we get into that later on the show.
Sure.
Let's go back to when, you were searching for answers, right? You were a woman on a mission to learn about, individuals who had successfully, healed from cancer. And this was what was driving you at the time. And at what point did you realize that you were on the right track during your search? What did you discover that was so profound that because you made the switch, caused you to shift your focus?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, I was doing everything that I wanted my dad to do. So when I would come across some information that I thought might be helpful and he wouldn't do it, he's kind of stubborn that way, I was doing it. And I was benefiting. I was noticing how much better I was feeling. So that was a motivator too. So not, the spark was lit because of him, but then the motivation to continue was because of my own health. And I really appreciate your journey too. You can't really understand it until you've experienced it personally. The shift in your mental health was really quite a surprise to me as I moved more and more into the keto carnivore space, but we'll get to that. I think for me, I'm a qualitative researcher, right? So I started doing what I do, which is I started interviewing people, just people who had all kinds of healing, a lot from cancer, but also I would talk to anybody. And what I started to see, that's what we do. We look for the themes in these. I loved lived experience. I love to listen to people's stories, right? And so then to see, there are these patterns emerging that every single one of them had done both conventional and alternative, even though that's been around the longer. We'll call it alternative healing. All of them had done both. So those just happened to be the people that I was attracting, I guess, because those are the people who came. And all of them talked about their nutrition, something about changing their diet. And so I thought that was really interesting. So I was looking at both alternative health stuff and trying to get him to do that. And I was doing a lot of that myself. And then what I do is I go back to the research. Once I start seeing the themes, then I say, well, why is it that the diet would make such a big difference for people? And that's where I discovered gut health. So for me, it was a little backwards, but I realized that gut health had so much to do with disease, or, dysfunction in the gut was related to disease.
And you talked about your experience also helped, and our experiences also helped, because I want to get your opinion as a clinician. How hard was that for you to make that switch? Because you also had your training, and you've worked you worked in the field for, you said 9 years.
Well, I've been in the field for almost 20 when I
20 years.
Came up. I had been a professor associate
9 years.
professor for almost a decade. Yeah.
How hard was that for you to make that switch?
Oh, it's hard because you think you know everything, right? But I knew I didn't know everything about nutrition. Like, I had not studied that. I had looked at, particularly, I taught child and adolescent counseling. I taught play therapy, so family therapy. So I had looked at nutrition in terms of being able to help children that are on the autism spectrum, to help families. So I had a little bit of knowledge, but you do think you know a lot about mental health, at least. And for me to stay open, I've always been super curious person. I think that's my signature strength, is I stay curious and open. And I find, and you may find this too, as you interview people, the people that I interview, they stay open, they stay curious, and even in their own field, and they're willing to be wrong and to say, or there might be a piece that it may not be wrong necessarily, but just a piece that we've been missing. And so I was actually super excited about it. My colleagues did not seem as excited about my discoveries about the gut. I mean, they were nice, but they certainly didn't care about it the way that I was getting super excited about being able to help people in this whole new way just by changing some food. That's amazing.
And with all of these people that you're, encountering, people who are, you've been interviewing, you talked about they've experienced both, doing conventional as opposed to alternative and vice versa. How many have you seen use the conventional? Or maybe let's backtrack. What's your thoughts on conventional way of treating diseases?
Kind of negative. Just hasn't been super helpful for me personally, right? In my own health journey, I was one of those people that just had little things, nothing huge, but enough, skin issues, never feeling very good, having a lot of stomach, digestive problems growing up, horrible headaches started in high school, and no one ever seemed to really be able to help me or fix that. And I found that, in my dad's journey with cancer, there were some amazing people that were helping him that were more conventional, the oncologists and folks. There were some really smart people, but I found more of a home, I would say, in the alternative health and healing world.
And you've probably seen more healing on this side of things, like the alternative side of things, correct?
Yeah, I think that conventional, what we think of as our medical system, is great at acute. So if your arm's fallen off or you've been shot or burned, great trauma care units. Emergencies. Acute situations, I think we do really well. Chronic, not so much. And I think I was finding that in the clinical mental health world too, we were moving more and more towards this medical model. And I kept saying, wait, no, I went into counseling specifically because our roots are in guidance and wellness. I do not work from a medical model. I work from an educational model. This is, and I understand people want to get paid. Yep. And in order to get paid by insurance companies, you have to have a diagnosis. And in order to have a diagnosis, we have to, work from this conventional medical model. I think it has its place and is certainly fine. And there are people who work from that space and do good work. That is not me. I do not work from that space. So
doctors are, they're well-meaning, right? Sure. And you talk about, that's why when you said earlier that you didn't know anything about nutrition starting over, is not a lot of medical professionals would say that, right? In the beginning of, or realize that.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. No. And I think it's funny because if you get the honest, even MDs, right? So medical professionals that people go to that are giving advice on food and nutrition, and they've had very little training, if any, and it was wrong. And so the people who are honest about that say, oh, we were given the wrong info. Yeah. And I think for me, I'd always been interested in fitness. And so I was interested in health and fitness and nutrition, but I grew up I was a teenager in the 80s. Everything was low fat. Right. I thought I knew a lot, but I was wrong. Like everything we've been taught was wrong. And so, to admit that I think is really hard for a lot of people. Yeah, I was naturally opposed to medications when I was going through therapy. When my practitioner would give me prescription, I wouldn't take it. And in the beginning, when I couldn't sleep for a few days, I went to my doctor and he gave me a pill. I'm like, that's when I realized that the system couldn't help me because I don't think sleep was my problem. Right. Stress was the problem. Anxiety was the problem. Right. And so what happened was I found a therapist that practiced cognitive behavioral therapy. Now I know that wasn't the cure, but it helped me with the practices. Right. And it helped me with discipline. Right. Yeah. So there's a place for all of it. For all of it. We have to work together into just
making everything else work. When you stumbled upon the gut-brain axis, for anyone that's not familiar, let's define that, what it is and its process.
So it's the coolest thing that our gut, I'm going backwards, our gut and our brain are connected. And what's really neat is that it starts in utero. As we're being formed in utero, the same cells that then separate, one becomes the brain, one becomes the gut. And so neuroscientists have started saying, oh, there's a second brain. I'm like, why do neuroscientists have to put a brain in everything? Oh, there's a brain in the heart. It's like the heart can just be the heart. The gut can just be the gut. What we know is like these neurotransmitters, it seems like not only are they being produced in the gut, but the communication is going mostly up. Whereas most of us have been taught that the communication is the brain is the smart and it communicates down. There's a two-way communication. And now we have the quantum, which is just blowing it all out of the water. There's this quantum communication and it's everywhere in the body. It's amazing. But for the gut and the brain, just simply understanding that those are connected and there's communication all the time. And the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve, it's also called the wandering nerve because it wanders through all the major organs and it connects the brain and the gut. And so for people, I just kept saying, this is so exciting because people who are put on medication that don't want to be on it, it's fine if it's working for you, but these medications have so many side effects. A lot of clients who come to me are like, I didn't want to take the medicine, so I stopped taking the medicine or whatever it was. We have ways to help. Like, why wouldn't you at least mention to a client that's a mental health, hey, your gut is connected and is important, connected to your brain, is really important in your mental health. So if you want, we could also do some nutritional and lifestyle things to help out, even if you wanted to take the medicine. Like, why wouldn't we be excited about that?
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. That's the thing. That's my thing. And that's been my thing where I've just been asking people, why shouldn't this be just an option? Give people the option. Right? Just give them the option. And if they don't take it, that's fine. At least they have the option not to take the medication, right? I was at a point where I said this in multiple occasions that if I was given this option back then, 6-7 years ago, I would have done anything and everything. I was open to do anything, right? And if you tell me I should do keto for mental health, fine, I'll do it, right? But I was just so opposed to medication, and give me another option, give me another natural option, and I will try that first. And so that's always been my case. That's always been me. That's me for headaches, right? I know.
Yeah.
That's me for aspirin. That's me for anything. Let me try this first. Oh, why was my headache so bad today? Well, because I used to drink coffee and then I stopped. Well, that's the problem, right? You stop drinking coffee, all of a sudden now you have a headache, right? That's an extreme example, but maybe you're dehydrated. That's why you're having. I ask my body first. That's my thing. Like, what's going on in my body? That's a key. And do you think you were always like that? Because I'm just curious. There are a lot of people like us who just don't want to be taking the medicine. Like we just never have, and we're open. So I'm like, I think that's also a personality trait. Is it? Be open. You think so? I think so. But I also am curious about that, right? Is there something else about you that made you more open, that made you more curious? Because I think that's what we're missing these days. People are very attached to their devices. Like when I ask somebody, how was your sleep? They look at their Oura Ring data or their Apple Watch. And I'm like, no. Like, just tell me, did you wake up refreshed this morning? They kind of don't know. And so what you were just saying, you were curious about your own body. You ask your body. And I don't know that people are really doing that. Yeah. I think for me, it started when I would just binge on the weekends. When my fitness journey started, and, obviously if you cut if you just cut the processed foods and the sugar on the weekdays, you would feel good, right?
You will feel better, for sure.
You will feel better. And when I would binge on the weekends, now it will feel like garbage, right? And I think that's when it started, when I was in my early 20s, that's when I realized that, okay, those foods are making me sick. And then I guess when I started fasting, you know, feeling good when I'm not eating those type of foods, I think that's when I linked that feeling. Okay, this foods makes me feel this way. And I think for most people that don't get the connection or realize that connection is those people haven't felt great in a long time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And and they feel like what they're feeling is, you know, if it's common what they're feeling, it's common with, you know, their age group. They thought that's normal.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what their problem is.
You're right, because you're talking about a really important piece here too, about that, making that connection. And most people don't realize how much their mood is related to their food. And so you have to have some difference in feeling to be able to notice that. And so I think a lot of people could relate to that, right? Because they binge on the weekends, even if they like don't drink or don't have whatever during the week, and then the weekend, you can feel the difference. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. I was in that boat. I didn't know that I could feel amazing. And I really didn't get there until carnivore, to be honest. I had to go all the way. Like keto, I love working with people and utilizing a whole foods ketogenic diet. Amazing. But even if people aren't there, if they want to do, you know, just clean some things up or even do a lower carbohydrate, figure out what works for them. But I had to go all the way and just do the carnivore.
And I've always been sensitive to foods. And I think in the Philippines, back in the Philippines, when you're growing up, you're just, they don't diagnose you really. You're just, you said, I looked up colic. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
as a
colic.
baby?
Yeah.
Colic. I think I was the same, right? Because my mom can't stop talking about how I'm just a crybaby and I don't stop crying, right? I looked it up and I feel like I'm the same way. My daughter now has a eczema. She breaks out whenever she eats high carb meals. And so I've been monitoring her, but we've always been sensitive to that. And ever since just going on keto, I actually stumbled upon keto as accidentally because I wanted to lose weight. Okay, what's this keto all about? And I'm like, after a few months, I lost weight, but it was the energy. It was just the clarity that it gave me. And I was somebody who, can't read past chapter 1 in any book back in school. And I always just blame it to, laziness, right? But I don't anymore. I read multiple books a month, and everything else just improved in my life. And so I'm like, when that happens, I'm like, what's going on? And I started interviewing people, and then I started interviewing experts in the space, just wanting to learn more about it. And it just grew into this, and I just wanted to share this with people. And that's what happened. And, your practice, you talked about healing the gut, and, some practitioners that I've interviewed, you talked about calling the gut the second brain. Now we know that having a healthy gut helps the brain. So let's talk about therapeutic diets and to heal the gut. There's a lot of diets and variation of these diets. So let's really define these here. So talk about what diets do you use therapeutically in your mental health nutrition practice for your clients.
Yeah, really good points. And I developed my own. I created a pro-healing diet. It's more of an ancestral. Certainly I favor animal foods because there are more nutrients that are available for your body to absorb that way. But I have clients that are, not going that direction. So what I did is I took the best of the information from the people I'd interviewed, And the best of the information from my training in nutritional therapy and all my clinical training, I'm sure, had something to do with it. And then my own life. And I created something, and it really was very organic. It's more of a seasonal approach, of course, because now I've got the quantum. I'm much more into our mitochondrial health and all of that. So what I did is I took all the info on gut health, metabolic health, nutrient deficiencies, all the ways that I help people. And I put it together in what I call the Pro Healing Diet. So it's really about, it's the stuff that people know, but it gets confusing. So I tried to just make it as simple as possible for my clients because they would be so overwhelmed. So some of them are really into checking their ketones.
Yeah.
They are always got their, they're checking. And I think that's great. We can utilize, being in a ketosis. So ketosis is a metabolic state. I think some people think ketosis is a diet. It's like, no, we can utilize the diet to be more in ketosis. And I do think that ketosis allows deeper and faster healing. It just seems to do that. But not all my clients are willing to go there. So I work with people individually to kind of see where they already are and what needs healing. Because sometimes we need some healing before we can even figure out the diet piece. Like just digestive stuff. They might need a few supplements to get them on the foundation ready. And then we slowly start figuring out what to do. But, for gut healing, well, you were asking about therapeutically. So that's what I use therapeutically. Before that, I've used paleo, keto, carnivore, some version of something around that. But it's all getting the processed crap out, like, of course. Really the grains, the sugar, and the seed oils or vegetable oils, like really start there with people. And the gut detractors, those are the major gut detractors. And getting people to give those things a break is really where we start. And then we can work from there.
That's a good point when you said in the beginning where you said, when we're talking about keto or ketosis, we're talking about the metabolic state, nutritional ketosis.
Yes.
And then also some people, when you say keto, they think low carb. Low carb can sometimes be misunderstood, right? It's either you're in a metabolic state of ketosis or you're not. Like
correct. That's right.
You can't be in between. You can't just, okay, I'm going to have 100 carbs. No, that's low carb. Or depending on how metabolically healthy you are, of course.
Right.
That's why I don't want to call it low carb anymore. Like, there's a lot of articles out there that comes out, keto-like this and that. And then you look at the study, it's like, it says 25% of carbs. I'm like, okay, that's 125 grams of carbs. That's not keto.
Right, that's not keto. And it's what kind of carbohydrates are we talking about? Yeah. And you and I can eat the same exact meal, and my blood sugar could be different. Our blood sugars could be different. Our ketones would be different. So if you don't check, you don't know. And some people don't want to check, and I actually think that's fine. But you're not going to know if you don't check.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference between somebody checking and not checking, like in success rate?
I don't know. I don't have those percentages, right? And I think people who are really intuitive and really know their body are really great at saying, oh, I felt better. I felt worse. They can tell. But so many of us have lost that ability. So, measuring for a little bit is helpful, especially when somebody wears a continuous glucose monitor. I want them to make one that has ketones and glucose. I keep hearing that's coming. I haven't seen one, but it doesn't seem like it would be that difficult to figure it out. But because you can see right then, you eat something, you can see how it's affecting your body. That is amazing data. But the more amazing data is to just notice how you feel. I always tell people, pay attention to digestion, mood, and also energy. Like, did you have the energy a couple hours later to finish your task, finish your day, or did you feel like you needed to eat again? You were crashing. But mood follows food. So it's a really good indicator of how things are working in your body. If your mood is all over the place, your food is probably not right.
Sometimes we just, go about our day not intentional, just mindlessly going through our day, waking up, going to work, coming back to work, eating, watching TV and eating, just mindlessly eating. That's the problem. Like, we have to start with mindfulness. And I think that's the biggest piece of just, making sure that you are being mindful of what you're doing. Like, you talk about my body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
That's everything. And what practices do you teach in terms of just how to become mindful? Like, I think for me, that's the biggest thing for me, and how you actually get in tune with your body is you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful of what you're feeling. What do you go through with your clients in terms of that?
Yeah. So the mindfulness, my favorite definition of mindfulness is the most basic, which is to get present in the moment without judgment, right? So I spend a lot of time too. A lot of my clients are really hard on themselves. And so I want them to work on that suspending judgment piece. So it's really about getting present. And a lot of us don't get present. And particularly when we're about to eat, we're on the go, or we're shoving it in. You haven't even paid attention. You haven't had any connection to your food. And so I like to work with them on just taking a beat before you start to eat, checking in with yourself throughout the day. Just notice, quick, not, hours of meditation. That's fabulous. But my clients aren't doing that. My clients need the 1 second check-in. How am I noticing how they're feeling? And a lot of people then need help figuring out what they feel because they've been so good at not feeling. And you're feeling, but you're not really bringing it up and getting curious about it. So they're shoving a lot down. So getting people to just be curious about what they're feeling, to take a second multiple times throughout the day, preferably outside, but that's my whole quantum thing. But really then having some ritual before meals where you take a couple of deep breaths. By the way, that's gonna tell your vagus nerve, hey, rest and digest, parasympathetic system gets online. You're connecting your brain and your gut by doing that deep belly breathing. Just a couple of breaths before you start to eat can help you get present. But that's all mindfulness is being present without judging it.
I love that. I love the breathing piece because you have to have some type of breathing exercise to, if you want to start being mindful. And it doesn't have to be 5-minute breathing. It can just be a one mindful breath, right? One
mindful breath is in and out.
Just do a one mindful breath before you do anything. I always say this for, just through my own experience, through people that I interviewed. I see that success is not, determined by the good days. That's the good days are easy, right? It is determined by how we handle the bad days, right? And the bad days are the times when we are down, when we're not feeling too motivated to do the things that will help us, right, be successful in this. And how you handle those things is the most important. And when you're feeling down, feeling lonely, ask yourself why you feel this way. Why are you so irritated? What happened in the beginning? In the beginning of the day, did you go through your routine, or has something happened? Because if you don't ask this question, you're just gonna go about your day feeling irritated, and without looking back and honing in to what is causing it, you will be, mindlessly going through your day just feeling crappy all the time. But if you start, pointing out what caused the issue, that emotion, you can point at one thing and say, okay, this is what happened. I can, simply just not do the thing that I did so I wouldn't feel this way, right? And for me, just doing that, being mindful, just asking the questions, I think, number one thing, asking yourself, why are you feeling this way? Because most of the time, I know this is going off track here, but most of the time when we feel lonely, we're sad, and we want to reach for foods that are not good for us, it's rooting from when we were we were a child where when we're crying, we're given treats, we're given sweets, we're given food, right? And that's when our association started with food and happiness. Now, when you're, as an adult, you feel the same emotions. You don't know where it's coming from. Now you're associated, food with happiness. You're reaching out for food, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's a big piece there. Quantum biology. It's a big word. Apart from, being a nutritional therapist, Dr. Kelli, you are also a quantum health coach. Just to be quite honest, I'm not very familiar with. If you don't mind, let's touch upon what quantum biology is and how can it provide simple solution for our, overall health for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you bringing all of those things up. And I just wanted to say to what you did say, that's what I mean about staying curious. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's not just about curious about the emotions that are coming up, because a lot of people have to start there, but then really allowing yourself to think about the origins.
Yes.
And contextualize that a bit. So that's great. And yeah, quantum biology, nobody knows what it is because it's so new. And the way I stumbled upon it was quite, it's interesting. You said, well, I just sort of happened on keto. I don't know that these things are that random. I think our path is our path, and if we're open to it, things are going to come. And for me, I'm curious, and I kept saying there are certain things that just aren't getting better in my own health and for clients, and lots of things would improve, but not completely clearing up. And so I just kept asking the question, like, what else is there? What's going on? And quantum biology, it's really taking this quantum, the smallest of things. So we're looking at the subatomic particles, but from a biology perspective, so that happening in the body. And what's really amazing about that is it's about cellular health. And so when you start to realize that you've got to get to the cellular health if you want optimal health. So all of these things with diet is foundational, I think. But the things that are also part of like quantum are respecting your circadian biology. So light and your light environment, most people don't realize that their food is information to their body. It also provides electrons to your mitochondria, which makes your energy. So if you've got low energy, if your sleep is crap, if your mood is really off, all of those things come down to the cell and what's going on at a cellular level and mitochondrial health. So healthy mitochondria drive health, and dysfunctional mitochondria drive disease. So you can do lots of things that are helpful, but if you don't fix your mitochondrial health, then you're still going to be driving disease, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And it's very new, right? It's,
yeah.
I want to, learn more about this, and definitely gonna have to educate myself on this area. But I'm glad that you're here to talk about it.
Yeah.
I saw, I watched one of your YouTube videos about this, and you talked about how, our bodies and how we can use food to make us feel better. Talk about trauma. You had a video about trauma. How does trauma affect the body overall?
Yeah, so trauma impacts everything, right? And so when we have a traumatic event that happens to us, and it can be, we call it, big T trauma that most people think of, like a car accident or a significant loss in your life, but also it can be small things, just things that happened along the way that were disruptive. And if we had the support that we needed at the time, and we were able to process that with people that loved us, and we're like, oh yeah, that was hard, and move, it becomes a traumatic growth experience. So it's not like trauma is necessarily always this bad thing. It can actually be a catalyst, like my dad getting cancer. I wouldn't have probably started looking into health in the new way I was. Like, all these things can be helpful on our path. Where it becomes a problem is when we didn't get the process it, or we didn't even know to. It was something small, and we thought it was insignificant. It was something that happened in our lives. We moved on, but our body didn't move on, So the body keeps the score. The body will actually wall off areas. And so you have this blocked flow of information through the body. So it's constantly causing these issues. And what's interesting is that our immune system and our emotions are inextricably connected. So it doesn't even have to be trauma. It can be emotions that are shoved down, any kind of emotion that's shoved down, or the trauma, those traumatic experiences, which could be injury. It could be something psychological that happened. It could be something physical that happened. But what happens is you get a block and you get this, there's no more flow to that area. And there are things we can do about that. But one of the most important is to actually acknowledge, like, oh, this could be part of the issue. And to realize that if you're continuing to have immune responses and your immune system is really overreacting, what feels like an overreaction, then that is most likely tied to some emotion or trauma or something's going on there that's not getting addressed.
I love that explanation. And if you're an adult and you get to this age, you have experienced some kind of trauma. Everybody does.
Everybody.
So let's talk about those techniques then. What are some of the techniques that we can do, right? Some actionable techniques today that we can do to significantly impact that, change that for the better. Yeah.
So I think it's really helpful to have places, to have somewhere where we're companioned. So I just want to say that often if you're in a place where you've done as much work as you can on your own, that to have a therapist or somebody that can work with you, a coach, somebody that can help you work through that. I'm a big fan of trauma-specific therapies, but body work will do that too. So even if you do some yoga, movement, massage, acupuncture, like the list is infinite of the ways that we can really help the body release some of that. So it's about releasing it, but then also making sure that your body has the inputs that it needs. So we talked a lot about food. Your listeners are used to hearing about the importance of food, but I just want to point out that a lot of my clients that have been doing keto for a long time, that are still anxious, are still having a lot of problems, and they've done the therapy work. They've done their trauma work. They're bringing up their emotions. They're like, what is happening? A lot of that is that they are not supporting their circadian biology, their circadian rhythms. So the light becomes really important. Getting outside, getting in nature, earthing. So getting bare skin on the Earth's surface actually helps us absorb those free electrons. Electrons are like money in the bank to the body. So food and fat, by the way, good quality fat is a great source of electrons. So another benefit of being on a ketogenic diet is we're really into our good fats. That's also electrons. But you can get electrons through other ways, like being barefoot or touching skin on Earth's surface, but also the light is really important. So people might get certain pieces of this right, but then they're not getting the whole picture. So we talked about breath work. There's so many ways to heal. It's just about getting the whole picture.
The whole picture. I love that. I love that. Oh, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
I'm excited with earthing. I just can't do it right now. We're in Toronto, Canada. It's just -5 today, but
yeah, it's really good. So you do a little cold therapy while you're yeah.
So let's say I can't go out earthing. What else can I do outside?
Yeah, just taking light breaks, just popping out there so that your eyes. So the information from the code or the frequencies of light that are outside in natural light, we get that through our eyes, the retina, and also our skin. So you're not going to have much skin exposed when you're out there in Toronto, but you can at least get the eyes. And
no sunglasses.
No sunglasses. Good point. Thanks. Yeah, if you can take your glasses and do no contacts or glasses or anything, that's helpful. And you're not staring into the sun. You're just getting natural light. It doesn't even have to be a sunny day for us to benefit from the light. So you're getting the light. Now, earthing, there are all kinds of, I sleep with an earthing mat now, so I sleep grounded in earthing. You can get, like, you could be standing, I have one under me right now. I have an earthing mat.
What's an earthing mat?
It's grounded into my outlet. It uses the grounding cord in my outlet, and it provides, just a mat that you stand on, and it gives you the same effect as if you were standing outside barefoot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there are ways to biohack this. But I think more importantly, too, even when it's cold, really honoring that it's cold out, change your lifestyle, like get sleep. Keto is a great time. Winter is a great time to be practicing a ketogenic diet because that's how we would be experiencing in nature. And then touching whatever you can, like even if you only touch a tree or a bush or something that's planted for a few seconds, because earthing is virtually instantaneous. So we absorb those electrons instantaneously. So it doesn't have to be long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No wonder I'm so happy when I see the sun. Like all the time here in Toronto, it's like,
yeah,
the sun is out. You know, I always sing that song. I forgot. Okay, never mind. Not
okay.
that song.
Well, I think I'm like, sun's out, I'm out. That's my motto.
I'm out. Yeah. No, amazing. Thank you so much for touching up on those tips.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I came across you and your practice, because there's a lot here that I haven't heard before, and nobody's talking about quantum biology. Right. And it's so interesting that, you know, those simple things can be done, you know, outside, just, you know, walking barefoot can really help, you know, our circadian rhythm and just, you know, balancing. Is it balancing? What do we call that?
Yeah, I like that. I like the word balancing, but harmony is probably more accurate.
Okay.
Is that having the body in harmony, where it's in harmony with what is naturally happening outside. Your body is then able to orient to the time and place and season that it's in. So I know we didn't get into all that. There's a lot to get into, but it's really about having a body that is has the energy and is harmonized.
And Dr. Kelli Ritter talks about all of this on her podcast, the Nourish Soul Podcast. I recommend her podcast. Check it out. It'll be linked down in the description box below. And she has also a YouTube channel where she talks about you know, all things body, mind, and soul. It's Dr. Kelli Ritter on YouTube. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelli.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, those are the best places, right? I'm on Instagram, is where I'm probably the most active, and the YouTube channel, the podcast, and then my website is nourish-soul.com. So,
perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story here with us today. We've learned so many. I hope the listeners are taking notes, because there's a lot here, and I will definitely re-listen to this. So make sure that I didn't miss anything. Dr. Kelli, thank you.
Thank you.